We visit New Orleans going from graveside to cafe au lait with Bobby Hennessy, owner of the city's most time-honored beignet and coffee spot business, The Morning Call. We'll discuss the legacy of the Hennessy family name, and Bobby shows us what goes into beignet and coffee perfection in the Big Easy. All that and more on this episode of Grave Talks with Shannon Scott.
My name's Robert Hennessy, born and raised in New Orleans. I've heard the stories as far as Chief Hennessy. It was my grandfather's uncle, and we've heard the story growing up in New Orleans. Actually, I lived on Hennessy Street in Mid-City, on the corner of Hennessy and Bank Street. But I'm born and raised, native New Orleanian. I'm in the coffee business. I have a coffee shop called Morning Call Coffee Stand. Been around since 1870.
Amazing.
And we love this cemetery, beautiful little spot. Used to be a fairgrounds at one time. And so that's what I do. I've been in the coffee business for 45 years.
That's incredible. And so tell us a little bit about choosing the Morning Call location so close to the cemeteries. Was that intentional, or it was because of the trolley car stop or the streetcar stop and everything?
Actually, we started in the French Market. We were there for 104 years, and then we moved to Metairie, which is where we're located now. And then we were back in City Park, and we were there for about 6 years, and we had an issue with the lease, and we were looking for locations. And just so happened to, I grew up in this area, and I love it by the cemeteries, and it was an available location. So we like it. It wasn't because of where Chief Hennessy is, but it's nice. My mom's in Greenwood, which is closer to where we are now.
Wow. And so spiritually, that just feels great. I mean, for a family to have all that connection in one spot.
Sure.
So much history in one area. So a lot of our watchers of Grave Talks are definitely coffee drinkers. So tell us a little bit about Morning Call and its specialties. We had some delicious beignets there yesterday, by the way, and a cafe au lait, which was wonderful.
Right. Well, it's it's considered the best. A lot of locals go to us. It's not real touristy, and we've been doing things the same way we did 152 years ago. The way we brew the coffee, the way we pour the cafe au lait out of these handmade kettles. It's kind of a show to see the whole thing. We make the beignets by hand still. Sourdough recipe, which no one uses, and it's the proof is in the taste. So anyone that comes to New Orleans, and you have to have a beignet, you have to try Morning Call, try all of them, and you'll see there is a huge difference in the coffee and the beignets and the service, and it's a local place. If I go to Savannah, I want to go where the locals go.
That's right. Right.
This is where the locals go, and the knowledgeable tourists who are finding out, who maybe don't know about us, are finding out in a hurry.
Well, my compliments to you on the vintage style and the design of the interior as well. It really felt like you're stepping back to that old days of New Orleans, especially with the streetcar stop there. It just takes you back.
Sure, and all of the interior fixtures are from some from the original store in the French Quarter. The arch is actually a replica. The exposed light bulbs is sort of our signature. The waiters with their little bow tie and the hats, that's the way they did it years ago.
So
we
cool.
have waiter service. You don't have to wait in line like at some of the places. We kind of frown upon that. It's nice to have waiter service, and they bring a glass of water, old school.
Yeah, man, it's
cool.
It's keeping people in jobs, and it's a very human approach. It's a real approach. I love that.
But the thing about that location, Shannon, before we open, just the feel of the place. It's hard to put like why does it feel so good? But before we open, just sitting in the place. Maybe it has something to do with the proximity to my mom and my dad and my grandfather. Something about the feeling was just overwhelming. So
Wow.
I feel like we're in the right place.
I love that, man. It spoke to you. Well, it sounds like that type of intuition has served your family business well for over 100 years.
152 years.
152 years.
Right.
Thank you. So may that continue. So tell us a little about where we're standing. maybe just the whole story of David Hennessy, or as we say, Chief Hennessy.
Chief
Correct?
Hennessy, right?
That's
Right.
more proper. Thank you.
Actually, this isn't a family tomb. I know you mentioned something about that, so I'm
Oh,
not, maybe the city put it up or
I
the
see.
police department. I'm not sure, but
Probably the police department and fraternal orders tended to
right,
do that. Makes
right.
sense.
But from what I read, he was in a New Orleans Police Department for 20 years. He started as a messenger, and he worked his way up, and he became chief. And from what I was reading about the history of New Orleans back in the 1880s, 1890, there was a couple of I don't want to say mafia, but some Italian groups, some Sicilian groups, and I think they were fighting amongst themselves. Somebody had a monopoly on the fruit coming in from South America, and another group wanted it. So they had some shootings, and some people died. And I think he was, from what I read, he was going to testify on behalf of one of the groups of Italians, and it was a week before the trial. And he was walking home. I think he lived with his mom. He was, I think, like 30 something, 32 years old. And he was walking home, and they ambushed him and shot him, and to keep him from testifying. And he was lying in the street. I think he died the next day, but he was lying there mortally wounded. And someone said, "Chief, who did it?" And he uttered the words, "The Dagos did it." So it's kind of a derogatory term to all the Italian folks out there. And
I see.
I'll try to be politically correct. But at the time, there were a lot of maybe unscrupulous Sicilians in the city, and he was trying to maybe clean things up. But whatever happened, he got shot basically.
Wow.
So then I think there was I think it was, from what I read, there were like 11 Italians that they rounded up. I think the family that they thought did it was the Matranga family, and I think the people that they arrested were associated with them. So they arrested them, and then they had, like, from what they considered like this little trial, and it was kind of like a circus. I don't think people thought it was legit.
Show
And,
trial.
I think there was some bribery and some things happened, and I mean, the mafia at the time, maybe they had some power, they had money, had influence. So I think they had this little trial, and they acquitted like 9 of them or whatever. And I think the other ones, maybe they all got off without any penalty, from what I'm understanding. It wasn't. People felt that justice hadn't been served for the killing of Police Hennessy, of Chief Hennessy.
Yes, sir.
So they, I think they had a businessman, forget the gentleman's name, but he formed a group of private citizens to try to make things right. So they actually went into the jailhouse and broke in, and they lynched like 11 Italians. They hung 2 of them publicly from a street post. They shot 9 of them. It was a big deal. These were the citizens, and they felt that justice hadn't been served, so they took things into their own hands. And then meanwhile, I think, and I think this was like the largest mass lynching in American history, is what I'm understanding. So
Wow, that is intense times in New Orleans.
and then I think the president of Italy, contacted the embassy, contacted the United States officials, and there was a big deal over that. They wanted reparations for the families of them, and I think the U.S. ended up giving them like $25,000 apiece. The mayor and the citizens were sort of behind what happened, because they felt that an injustice had been done.
I see. I
So,
see.
and they took things in their own hands, right or wrong. That's what they did.
And has this remained much discussion in your family through the many decades? Is it, war story stuff,
Well,
or
you
the
know, I mean,
legend of?
I try to tell people, because the phrase that they used back in the day, when they had this mock trial, and some people in the audience was kind of taunting the Italians that were arrested, and they were kind of doing these little fake Italian accents, and said, "Hey, who killed the chief?" So that was a way to incite the Italians, So I had an old Italian buddy of mine, Tony Catalano, years ago, and he said when he was a kid, they would taunt him, "Hey, Tony, who killed the chief?" And they want to start fighting and stuff.
Wow.
So
So it remains
comes up.
tense.
It's still, to this day, I'll mention to people, about Hennessy Street, who it was named for. A lot of people aren't familiar with the history of it.
Sure.
And actually, the mayor of New Orleans invited me, being a descendant of Chief Hennessy, to the Italian Cultural Center. They had some of the descendants of the lynched Italians, and she made a formal apology to them for lynching his relatives. But no apology was ever given for the massacre of Chief Hennessy.
Mm.
So I thought that was very unusual. It wasn't he was a law, he was upholding the law in the city, trying to make things good. And he got not even one mention from the mayor of New Orleans, but she got on her knees to ask for forgiveness from these descendants of the Italians who were lynched.
I fully understand that. I feel like that's always politicians being politicians, I'm sad to say.
Right. But something could have been said about
At
Chief
least
Hennessy,
something.
and it was a
something,
tragedy.
Something.
He was a 20-year veteran of the police department. He was chief of police. He worked his way up. He's trying to do good. And
Yeah.
he gets murdered, assassinated, and not even a word was said.
Amazing.
So it kind of miffed me a bit.
Amazing. Wow. That leaves me speechless in some respect. So, and I apologize, but his direct relationship to you
It
is
was my grandfather's uncle.
okay.
So I guess his daddy's brother.
Sure.
And actually, there was a picture. I don't have any pictures on me. I'm going to probably get some. But the photo of him my dad looked like Chief Hennessy. I
Wow.
can see the resemblance
Wow.
uncannily.
That's amazing. Was there any story ever shared? I mean, obviously that's a very dramatic story of his life, to say the least. But was there something else about his humanitarian side in the city, or how people extolled his, virtues, or said something about a certain event, the way he treated someone, or helped seek justice in some way for others? I mean, other things like that?
The only thing that I read was, at his funeral when they laid him out, that he had so many people there. And there were more people there than were at Jefferson Davis's wake. So obviously he was well liked.
Yes.
As far as any other stories, I wish I had more stories to tell about
Oh,
him.
that's okay.
But I think he was from what I read, 32 years old or something. He was very young.
Wow, that is
And I think his father was a policeman, and he may have gotten killed on the line of duty as well.
Wow.
From what I'm understanding.
Wow.
But obviously, to have that many people and have that kind of support, I think he was well loved and probably did a good job, I would think.
Certainly.
But I wasn't there, obviously, and I wish we had more stories to tell of him.
Well, it sounds like he made his mark, and then, goes down tragically young in the line of service, which, based on the look of the monument, where we see a broken pillar, which shows a life cut short. We see, I'm guessing, Superintendent of Police. Okay, I see.
Yeah, Chief of Police.
Chief of Police there, the SUPT. So yeah, we see the kind of the veil of life up there. Clearly, his police baton, other part of his, let's say, police chief belt, his utility belt, but that baton is very distinct. Definitely shows fallen warrior stuff. Beautiful
It
monument.
really is. I don't know who designed and built it, but they did a
Well,
nice
we'll look
job.
into it. Trust me.
nice
That's what
job.
we do well. We look into these things, and we'll make that a part of our filming today, or our story today.
And the other thing too,
Yeah.
just the spelling of the name. I know I lived on Hennessy and Banks, and it was spelled this way, but recently they have an E before the Y, and I spelled mine with an E before the Y. So I don't know why there's a discrepancy between my spelling and his spelling.
Sure.
Unless something changed over the years, I don't know.
Sometimes those family minutes get lost, but maybe we can stumble upon the reasoning. I will add this, that when you see a period at the end of people's names like that,
Yeah.
in that 19th century hour, in the early 20th century, people of importance would often sign their names in documents with a period to show the importance of the family name, and they would do that right down to the headstone.
Okay.
Isn't that interesting?
Okay. Interesting. It is. Very nice.
Well, Bobby, we really just wanted to say thank you once more for visiting with us today in Metairie Cemetery at your ancestors' grave, Chief Hennessy's grave, and what an honor it's been to meet you and have some of the family legacy shared directly from a family member. So that's the whole purpose of Grave Talks, really. So thank you again.
Well, thank you, Shannon. Pleasure meeting you. And we'll go get some coffee and beignets.
Oh, man, that was awesome. You know, there's something about storytelling in a New Orleans cemetery on a rainy day that just brews up an appetite. So I'm going to cruise the Buzzard Mobile over to Greenwood Cemetery, where across the street at the morning call, Bobby Hennessy has promised to demonstrate exactly what goes into 152 years of one family in New Orleans making these classic beignets and cafe au lait in the old tradition, and I can't wait.
Yeah, but you have to make a little pie, right? Once you make that, you move it from there to here, and then from here, make little pies. Go. So pie, make a nice little seams out of it, make it nice and smooth. Fingertips and smooth it to the pie. All right, so we're going to roll this guy out. Flour keeps it from sticking. Right. Flip it. More flour underneath. Flour on top. You want the right thickness. You don't want it too thick or too thin. So that's the secret too. You get the right thickness. A little thinner, and then I pop the dough and it shrinks back a little bit. That's coming at you. You do this right. And the next dough. This is the old school way of picking them up on each finger. Pick them out. Makes cottonseed oil. We would always use. Puff them up so they puff nice. And what we do different than the other guys, we don't hold them under the oil. Some people have like a screen and they hold them under. We don't do that. So we float them on top and flip them. Check it. There you go. Good pretty. We do about 365 on the temperature. So you got a nice golden brown. And the key is to get them the same color on both sides. If you're too slow flipping them, it'll be too dark. It'll be lighter. And the same on both sides. Color. Flip them there. That's a good color right there. You can agitate them a little bit. Flip it. You're going to flip them. It's quite hard to flip. And you get two at once. The other side, that color is screw them in. Well, like I said, our competitors hold them under the whole time. Not good.
That's too much soaking.
It just holds them under for
Drowning,
like 3
right?
minutes.
It's drowning.
You want to float them.
With that air.
Color,
That
was about right. Yeah. Hold that right there. We do it the old school drip method. We got water, we boil the water, bring it right to like a low boil usually. This little apparatus here, this is a filter. We put coffee grounds in here. This is a filter that's reusable. We wash it out every time, rinse it out, reuse it for months even. It's nice and seasoned, and I think it adds to the flavor of the coffee, actually. So we put the coffee grounds in here, we take our little pot, which I don't have right now, but we take 3 pots at a time, saturate the ground. It drips through this bottom here, the perforations. And we already have some made, so that's the finished product. And then we stir that up real good, put it in the back, we heat it, and then we fill up the 2 pots. One of the 2 pots with coffee. The other one has milk in it. Handmade, this was the old one of the original. This is a replica made to mimic this. This has got milk in it. This has got coffee and chicory. When we pour it, and that's every cup that we pour, we do this. How we do it. Old school. Pretty unique, huh? We do it every morning.
Cool. With all of the code, you mean? You don't want that on you.
Brand new one that was in the hold of the boat that they refused to bring upstairs to, I guess they would be playing in the parlor or whatever, it would be on the boat. So he had enough. He went out there and pushed the boat overboard to Lake Pontchartrain. So to this day, it's somewhere out there. But that kind of inspired him to bring.